Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest. 28th of November 2023 will be a day that I more than likely will remember for quite a while in terms of my investing life. Now, I have been investing for well over 10 years now, not quite 15, but well over 10. And what happened on this particular day, it has never happened to me before in my investing life. And that is when a company I own has acquired or is attempting to acquire the majority of another company I own. It's not a complete takeover, but this one company is trying to virtually take over the rest of the other company. Now, these two companies I do own. One I have held for maybe a year and a half or so, and that is IPD Group. Now, IPD Group comprises of businesses that specialize in the design, development, and distribution of leading electrical products and technologies. And this part of the economy will, because it's sort of has to do with electrification of the economy, I think is a significant growth area sector over the next 5, 10, maybe even longer. Next 5, 10 years, maybe even longer. Now, a few months ago, I did a video on another company called Excelsior Capital. And what I found, it was a suggestion by a viewer of this channel. And what I found was a really interesting company. Now, Excelsior Capital comprised of this two divisions in the one company that was selling electrical products. In fact, this company, which was called CMI, or is called CMI, is a distributor of electrical cables and manufacturer and the distributor of the Minto plug brand. Now, the other part of Excelsior Capital was a listed investment company. Now, when I did research on Excelsior Capital, I saw some really good value in the company simply because of CMI. So I actually bought some shares in the company because of CMI. And we found out today that IPD Group wants to buy CMI from Excelsior Capital for a cost or for a price of just over $100 million. So in today's video, I'm going to go through this acquisition by IPD Group and talk about why I have now sold my shares in Excelsior Capital. So let's start off with what happened this morning, which actually was interesting. And I'll just zoom in a little bit here because the day started just like every single day I have when there is trading. I'm looking at announcements, and I noticed that IPD Group went into a trading halt at 9:09 a.m. for a capital raising. Now, IPD Group doesn't need any money, and I was sort of interested, intrigued about why they had to raise capital. And at that point in time, my thinking was they were making an acquisition. And then it was about 30 minutes later, in fact, 34 minutes later, that they announced that they were going to buy CMI from ECL. Now, I absolutely love this acquisition by IPD Group because it simply means I'm going to maintain my holding in this company moving forward because I think this is a really good acquisition, as I've said. I'll talk about that in a second. And I'd also decided because the only reason I was holding Excelsior Capital was because of CMI. There was no reason left for me to own that company. Not only that, the share price of Excelsior Capital, ticker code ECL, rose about 20%. So I sold at $3.28, just off the high, which was $3.31. Share price has pulled back a bit. So share price up 16.36% today. So in today's video, I'm just going to go through the IPD Group presentation, and hopefully this will probably explain why I do think this is a really good acquisition because it's put one company that I do think, well, a part of a company that I do think is quite undervalued into another company, and I don't think IPD Group paid that much for CMI. So let's have a look at the presentation. So this is the sort of the acquisition or equity raising and acquisition presentation. I should also mention that IPD Group also had the AGM, and they actually put out some guidance today, and they are expecting another brilliant half year with profit and revenue up over 20% from the previous corresponding period. So let's have a look at this presentation. A lot of important notices and disclaimers, in fact, 5 pages of them. Geez. Okay, so this particular acquisition, I've already mentioned it's over $100 worth or in valued $100, but there's an upfront payment of $92 million and then a contingent payment of up to a maximum of 8.9 million. So there is a possibility where IPD Group won't pay Excelsior Capital over $100 million. Maybe it's only going to be 92.1 million. Now, this does give Excelsior Capital management a little bit of leg room and flexibility moving forward with the listed investment company. But I'm not the biggest fan of LICs, but this could be a good move by Excelsior Capital, particularly if they do have some potential acquisitions in mind. The rationale of this acquisition, strategically compelling acquisition in a highly complementary sector. And this is where I love this acquisition. I think this is a brilliant acquisition simply because it really complements what IPD Group is doing. And they also actually say here, extends IPD Group's product suite, increases supply diversity, strengthens the overall value proposition, etc., and broadens customer reach. What else do we have? The other thing is, they mentioned here growth. CMI is experiencing right now some really good organic growth. That's another reason why I thought CMI or Excelsior Capital was undervalued because of the growth going through this particular business, growing at 18% revenue, compound annual growth between 2021 and 2023. Now, you could say and argue that's only over a short period of time, which I probably would accept. And EBIT has grown at 31% per annum. So CMI is growing really strongly right now. And the other thing I'd say is I expect that growth to continue because there are some significant tailwinds in this particular sector. Financial impact, this might be reason why I don't think the share price is going to be that impacted by this capital raising. First of all, the discount isn't that much, only about a 6% discount to the current share price. And the financial impact of this acquisition could be quite significant. Now, just because management is saying this doesn't necessarily mean this is going to happen. We have seen plenty of acquisitions in the past where the management have said this is going to be earnings per share accretive, that sort of thing, and it's not. So always take management expectations with a grain of salt. They expect this acquisition to be significant, financially significant for IPD Group, but I think there is a possibility it will. So pro forma financial year 23, EPS accretion of over 30%, excluding synergies. Sometimes they will include expected synergies in that EPS accretion, but this is not including synergies. Increases IPD's pro forma EBIT margin from 10.3% to 11.7%. And maybe a negative is they are going into debt. So they're doing or they are paying for this acquisition through the capital raising, also increasing their debt. Transaction overview. This is just talking about the equity raising. So it's a $65 million equity raising. And the other thing here is the 92.1 million, equivalent to 6 times CMI's financial year 23 EBIT of 15.5 million. So it's not that expensive. Now you could say maybe 3 or 4 times EBIT would be a better value, but because I'm a holder of both companies, I think that's pretty good value. I still think CMI is undervalued even at 6 times EBIT because of the growth the company has been experiencing. IPD Group also go into debt of $40 million, and hopefully they will draw down that, pay down that debt over the next few years. And if they don't, and they can continue to grow, they could maintain a debt of $40 million and everything will be okay with their business. Pro forma, actually, I'll look at some charts later in this particular presentation. So just going through what CMI does, cable division, Minto plug division, talk about the rationale behind it, and then the trading update. So they are expecting EBITDA and EBIT to be 20% higher than the first half of financial year 23. I think I said NPAT and revenue, which is not included. But we could assume that NPAT and revenue will be up significantly from last year. And I don't think, I'm assuming this is not with the acquisition included. This is underlying first half financial year 24 guidance. So not including the acquisition. Going through CMI overview, talking about CMI. So when you look at the key facts of CMI, how it's performed financially, $104.3 million of revenue, EBIT $15.5 million, EBIT margin 14.9%, etc., etc. So it's a good acquisition in my opinion. Talking about the business structure, the two divisions, cables and Minto plugs. And I think there's financials, just talking about CMI right now. Pro forma financials. This is where it does get, well, maybe not interesting, but this is where I find it interesting. So pro forma financial year 23 revenue. Now, pro forma means if IPD Group bought CMI on the 1st of July 2023, these what the numbers would look like for the IPD Group in this particular financial year. So $331 million of revenue, 69% is IPD Group. Now, IPD Group does consist of, if I remember correctly, about 4 businesses. So 69% IPD Group. And you have to say group here because IPD is one of the businesses in IPD Group. And 31% of the revenue is CMI. EBIT, 60% IPD Group, 40% CMI. Now, IPD Group's valuation was over $300 million, while CMI valuation was less than $100 million. Yet it's almost 50% EBIT. So that's another reason why I think CMI is undervalued. Now, you might argue, counter to that, maybe that just means IPD Group was significantly overvalued and CMI was fairly valued. Now, I probably wouldn't agree with that. These are other pro forma numbers. Earnings per share, 24.3. So with IPD Group's share price right now, let's have a look. I don't really follow IPD Group's share price movement all too much. $4.20. So 24.3 cents means the earnings per share or the P ratio of the new IPD Group is probably less than 20. EBIT up to 38.9, EBIT margin up to 11.7, and we've already talked about the debt. So a little bit more debt. And this is the other interesting one, was revenue diversity. I like this particular slide. I do like diversity. You don't want all your revenue coming through one product or one sector or one company. And there is a bit of diversity here. So 32% of the revenue for this new IPD Group is power distribution, and then 25% cables, 19% industrial motor control, and then 9% automation industrial communication. And the end consumer markets or the sectors, so 44% commercial construction, 14% infrastructure industrial, 14% resources and mining, and then all the others around about 4 to 6%. While suppliers by revenue, so we do have one at 30%, another one at 29%. So largest suppliers 30%. Next 4 largest suppliers are 23%. So there's one large supplier which is 30%. So that might be a little bit too high, in my opinion, just a little bit too high, but that's okay. And then, yeah, you can just see there is a little bit less diversity in suppliers than the other two. And I think maybe that's all I want to just talking about the capital raising. Anyway, our pro forma balance sheet, what else do we have? And the trading update. So you can see here, first half of last year, EBITDA was 13.4 and EBIT 11.5, and they're expecting a 20% increase in those for the first half of this particular year. And if this acquisition goes through, more than likely it will, because Excelsior management is saying this is a good acquisition for the company, and they approve it. So all systems moving forward for this acquisition. Currently, Excelsior Capital, according to Market Index, has a market cap approaching $91 million. It says a share price $3.15. So a bit of a sell-off at close. Oh, okay, that's not live. Yeah, share price just before closing did get as low as $3.15. Low as $3.02. So I did well selling Excelsior Capital shares today at $3.28. Not quite the high, but you never buy and sell at the lows and highs. It's almost an impossibility. Anyway, what was I talking about? So market cap of this company, and here's my justification for selling Excelsior Capital. First thing or reason is they sold out of the whole reason I bought Excelsior Capital was because of CMI, and they've now sold that. And I'm not interested in a listed investment company. Now I did some numbers, ran some numbers, and I thought the value of the listed investment company after this acquisition goes through could be as high as maybe 100 to 110 million. Now, currently they have about 20 to 25 million dollars of funds under management. So you could say if this acquisition goes through, they might have 120, 130 million dollars funds under management, but listed investment companies typically sell at a discount. So I thought a discount would be between $90 and $100 million. And I saw the market got up to about $100 million at $3.28. I thought, hell, we'll take profits here. No reason why I need to hold a listed investment company. And that's why I sold out of my position of ECL. I'm always going to take a 20% profit in any sort of investment, no matter how long I'm going to hold it. Well, unless it's like a 10 to 20 years, I won't accept 20% profit. But because I've only held Excelsior Capital for a few months, 20% profit in this company or in this holding is a good day's work, in my opinion. Anyway, charts for, I'm going to briefly look at the charts. IPD Group has been a brilliant looking chart. A little bit of weakness in the last few months, however, and I have been wondering whether I should take profits. I've decided not to at this point in time. The value of my holding in IPD Group is probably over $10,000 right now. And ECL, Excelsior Capital, is not liquidly traded. However, even though it's not liquidly traded, you can just see the share price in a beautiful uptrend because CMI has been growing and the market knows it. So even though it's highly liquid, only was it 29 million shares on issue, share price is a beautiful uptrend, and the share price reached at $3.20. If we look at the weekly chart, could be an all-time high for Excelsior Capital. An all-time high for Excelsior Capital. Anyway, so if you have any questions about this particular acquisition, that sort of thing, IPD Group, Excelsior Capital, love to hear your thoughts. So leave those in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I'm not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.